Hello, my name is Roy Mathena, and I'm the President and Chief Instructor for PSI Project Management. If you are interested in becoming PMP or CAPM certified, be sure to listen to this video. There are tips on what to look for when choosing a course, and also a brief description of the Advanced Project Management training program that PSI Project Management offers. Be careful when you choose a training partner. Not all PMP, CAPM prep courses are equal. Some provide the bare minimum and will require many hours of self-study before you will be able to pass the PMP exam. I know all about this because years ago, when I went for my PMP, I was very naive and I chose one of those courses. Several months later, after spending countless hours studying and spending more money on test simulators and more textbooks, I successfully passed the PMP exam the first time. PSI Project Management's Advanced Project Management training program was developed using that experience. It is a 6 weeks training program which in most cases will prepare candidates to pass the PMP on the first try. What makes a great PMP course? It will include a structured approach to project management training. It will include broad instructional content for understanding PMI's approach to project management. It will include instructional content specific for the exam. In other words, it will follow the exam content outline for the project management professional exam. It will have over 1,000 simulated exam questions, and the course will be conducted using PMI's PMP exam prep textbook, plus other materials that will enhance the learning experience. The course will include practical application exercises of the PMBOK guide and of the material. The course will be conducted by a PMI authorized training partner instructor. That is, an instructor that has been approved by PMI to teach the project management professional course. This project manager instructor should also have broad global project management experience. All right, so how does PSI Project Management's Advanced Project Management training program fit the bill for this? First of all, if I were to go through and to check off each one of these blocks that apply, you would see that every block is checked off, and the Advanced Project Management training program is comprised of all of these different boxes that you should be looking for your project management training instructor. Now, the training program has 5 weeks of pre-course study. The first week is about foundational terms and concepts and process framework. So it's very important to establish the fundamentals before you move into the actual training. And this also, the foundational information will also be a part of the exam itself. For example, we spend a great deal of time studying Agile project management, predictive project management, which is also known as traditional or waterfall types of project management, and then hybrid project management, where we use a partially Agile, partially traditional, and even a composite type where you're using incremental and iterative project development. So all that information is covered early in the studies that you will do. Now, this is a self-study approach. You'll be provided with a textbook that covers all these different areas, and you'll be given weekly assignments to cover. And then once a week, we get together for an hour-and-a-half session. That session will be set during the day or during the evening, whichever the class prefers to have. And we'll all get together and we'll talk about the material that you covered, discuss it, and cover any areas where you might be having specific problems. So once the foundational information is covered, then we will move into the knowledge areas according to the 6th edition of the PMBOK guide. Those knowledge areas starting off would be the integration management knowledge area. Integration is just as it says. We integrate all of the processes that we might use in a particular project. Then we work on the scope. What is the scope of the project? How do I identify the scope? How do I write the scope? What all is required there? So there we talk about, for example, how to collect requirements for the project, how to write the scope statement, and how to create the work breakdown structure. And oh, by the way, if we get scope wrong, guess what? Our entire project is going to be wrong, because schedule, cost, quality, resources, risk, procurement, everything else is based on the scope of the project. So we have to focus on that and make sure that we get it right. So once we have our scope, then we would do our schedule. When will we expect to be doing each activity on the project? We develop our schedule baseline, and that schedule baseline will be monitored to make sure that we're staying on track with the schedule itself. Then we move into week 3 study. Week 3 study is about cost. Now, before we can do the cost management, we have to have the scope, and we also have to have the schedule. The reason is this: we need that information to be able to plan the cost. When we plan the cost, it will be the cost for the human resources as well as the physical resources. And also, the cost baseline is a time-phased baseline. So in essence, we have a time-phased budget, so we know when we'll be paying out for each activity. Then resource management is also a very important part of the project. What resources do I need? Both human resources as well as physical resources. For example, do I need equipment? Do I need raw materials? Do I need facilities? And then do I need database programmers, or do I need carpenters? What is it that I need for this project that I can accomplish the objective of it? Communications management is the kickoff for week 4. Now, communications in any project is vital. 90% of a project manager's time is spent communicating. Your job is to be out into the project communicating with the stakeholders, with the team members, and everyone to make sure that the communications is good and that it's fulfilling all the needs of the stakeholders themselves. Risk management. What is the culture? What is the risk associated with the project? And based on that, as to the level of risk planning that you will do. Risk can be vital to the project itself. Then we have procurement management. Do I need to purchase something? If I do, then I need to make sure we're purchasing it the correct way. Now, you may have a purchasing department, and that's good. They're certainly there to assist you, but as the project manager, you are still responsible for your project, and if you're procuring something, you want to make sure that you're procuring it using the right methods, the right contracts. Then we have stakeholder management. Now, stakeholders are vital to any project. Stakeholders are going to be important, more so perhaps in an Agile project than they will be in a predictive, but maybe not. In a predictive type project, you've got to have your stakeholders. That's where all the requirements for the project will go. They will come from the stakeholders, and they will be included in the requirements documentation. And ultimately, that's what the project plan and the scope baseline will be developed based on. So once you've covered the first 4 weeks of training, and this training you're given certain assignments each week to complete, then our focus is going to turn on preparing for class, the finalization, and preparing for the exam itself. That is done through simulated exam testing. There's over 1,000 questions provided for this program. 240 of those questions are actually provided by PMI based on the exam content outline, and it's given only to the authorized training partners such as PSI Project Management. So testing, you'll be doing testing the week before class. Also, the application assistance. So now you're assigned partially during the weeks of Precourse study to work on your application. Now we get that finalized the week before class, so that come Friday of class that you'll be able to submit your application and get your exam scheduled. It's very important that you take the exam within 2 weeks, no more than 3 weeks after you have completed the live virtual class. The pre-course study is completed by the students, and it's based on your schedule. So you can work on it at 2 o'clock in the morning if that's your ideal time. It will take you maybe 10 hours, 8 to 10 hours a week of pre-course study to complete all the assignments. Now let's talk about virtual classroom instruction. So you have the prep. You have the prep from the pre-course study that you've completed. So you're going to come into class and you're going to have knowledge of most all the things that we'll talk about in class. But we're going to put it in a different perspective in class. We're going to use the PMI textbook, as I said earlier. And this textbook was developed by PMI for use by their OTPs. And it is based strictly on the exam content outline. The exam content outline is what the exam itself is based on. The exam is based on 10 contemporary project management books, which also includes the 6th edition of the PMBOK Guide. And this textbook covers each one of the tasks within the ECO. So in class, we will talk about, first of all, creating a high-performing team. We'll talk about subjects like how to build a team, how to define the ground rules and the team agreements, how to negotiate agreements, how to empower team members, how to build a shared understanding of the project. We'll also talk about lesson number 2, starting the project, determining the developmental approach. That would be, is it going to be an Agile project? Is it going to be a traditional project, incremental? Exactly what type of project developmental approach will we be using? And that, of course, is going to lead into how we go about planning scope, schedule, cost, resources, stakeholders, those different types of areas that we discussed earlier. Then we'll talk about integrating the project processes, making sure that we're completing only those processes that we need to complete. For example, tailoring the processes, tailoring the approach to meet the needs of the organization and to also meet the needs of the project that you are currently working on. Then doing the work. So once we have our plan, then we will start doing the work itself. We will assess and manage risk, for example. We'll execute the project to the plan. We'll manage communications and communicate with the stakeholders. We'll engage the stakeholders. We will manage changes and issues, making sure the whole time that we are completing the project plan as it was written, or in the case of Agile, as it is developed through the iterations, the backlogs, and the visions and the stories and so forth. Then we keep the team on track. So anytime we're executing the plan. Now, we want to make sure that we are staying on track with the plan. So we manage it to make sure and analyze it to see if there are variances present. We lead the team. We support the team's performance. Then we address and remove impediments, obstacles, and blockers. And oh, by the way, anytime we have a project, you're going to have conflict. So we want to make sure that we manage the conflict and keep that under control. So the next step is to keep the business in mind. Now, projects are always business focused. They're providing something useful for the business, or perhaps we're the seller and we're actually developing this project for our customer, which is generating revenue for our business. So we always have to consider the business aspect of a project. We want to make sure that we're managing compliance, that we're managing project benefits and the results, that we're managing the business environment and watching out and controlling and leading and adapting to organizational change. We're always focused as a project manager on continuous process improvement. At the conclusion of the class on day 5, we will be giving you a 180 question test, and you'll have 230 minutes to complete that test. Now, this is a test that PMI provides exclusively to their authorized training partners. No one else has access to this test. This test is going to be based on the ECO, the same as the exam that you'll be taking, but this is not the exam that you will be taking for your PMP certification or your CAPM certification. But this will it will prepare you. As we said earlier, we provide you more resources than is required by PMI. We have added a lot of value to the slides that we show. Modules that we've added include, for example, earned value module and a project network diagramming module. We also include in the PSI PM book things such as the forms. We provide the scope, schedule, just continuous forms, and the documents. One of the key questions I was always asked in class is, what does a project management plan look like? What does a stakeholder register look like? People want to see an illustration of what these look like. So we developed the project management plans that we talk about. We also developed the project forms that we talked about. And we provide those as a part of the class itself. And during the class, as we're talking about, for example, a scope baseline or a scope management plan, then we show that and we go through it to see the items that would potentially be in that scope management plan. Now you can take these documents, and if you do not have a scope management plan, for example, you can use these documents to help you create one based on the needs of your organization. So these are good resources for you as you work to improve your project performance. So let's take a look at some of these forms and some of these plans. So to begin with, let's look at the scope management plan. Now you can see from the chart here that it talks about the WBS. What does a WBS look like? What is the WBS dictionary and a description of it? What are the process instructions? How do we accept the deliverable? What is the acceptance criteria? And then there might be other specific scope information that we need to document for our scope management plan. So then let's look at the schedule management plan. Same thing here, schedule methodology. What is our methodology for controlling the schedule? What are the tools I'm going to be using? For example, am I going to be using Microsoft Project, Primavera, Smartsheet? Exactly what are my scheduling tools going to be? What is the level of accuracy of our schedule that we're developing, and how are we going to measure it? And oh, by the way, what is the threshold that we have established for the schedule? As long as we stay within that threshold, for example, we are in good shape and we're on track with our schedule. Then our schedule reporting format, our organizational procedure links to vital information that we need to be able to develop and maintain the schedule. Change management plan. In a traditional or a predictive environment, we want to control changes and make sure that our project is not overwhelmed with non-required changes. What is our change management approach? What is the definition of a change with regards to schedule, budget, scope, and documents? Our change control board would be identified. And then the process for change requests. Once a change is issued, what is the flow of it? What are the processes that are used? You could consolidate these plans into one overall project management plan. And we have an example of that. We have the life cycle, the developmental approaches, and then the subsidiary plans that we just previously discussed. You could combine those also into your overall project management plan and just have a composite of your project management plan. There are 19 subsidiary plans that you might use on a project. And here are the example of those plans. We talked about some of them. And then this, of course, is the processes where those plans were created. So we go through each one of these in the Precourse study, and we will cover them in accordance with the textbook for the class virtual class instruction. And we talk about tailoring in class in particular. In tailoring the project plans and forms and all to meet the needs of your organizational methodology, as well as tailoring them to meet the needs of the specific project that you are working on. So now let's look at the project documents. Project Charter. Project Charter is perhaps the most important document in project management. It says, I have a project. It names the project manager by name, and it states the key purpose and the key objectives of the project, the high-level requirements, the boundaries of the project, the exclusions of the project, the key deliverables, and high-level deliverable requirements. And then, of course, project risk. What have we identified with regards to the project that we need to be aware of? Then we go on and we develop the budget limitations. Is there a limit as to the amount of money that we can spend on this project? Are there key milestones that we have to meet? And what is the project manager's level of authority with regards to changes, budget, staffing, schedule, technical, and many more? Then we define and describe any other project-specific requirements that we might have. And then, of course, we sign off on it as a project manager, and we have key stakeholders identified, and we want to make sure that we get the sponsor's signature and or senior management's signature on the project charter. We have Agile forms also. Here's an example of a product backlog. In addition, we have the retrospective, the iteration planning, and so forth. So there's examples of the product backlog in Agile and many other aspects of Agile as well. Now, the scope statement is, I would say, second to the project charter. And the scope statement is going to describe in detail. If you look at the project charter, for example, it's a high-level description. But when we get to the scope statement, it is in detail. It has a detailed description of the project and of the deliverables. It has the acceptance criteria. It has exclusions. It has constraints. It has assumptions, risk. So this is a very detailed description of the project, and we will use this to decompose it down into the WBS and into the work packages, which is the level that we will manage projects at. We also have a stakeholder register. Now, the stakeholder register is pretty straightforward. We want to identify all the key stakeholders for our project, and we want to make sure that we are communicating with them and that we are meeting their project expectations. Now, we talked about a WBS. The WBS is a graphical hierarchical chart. It looks a lot like an organizational chart. It doesn't have much details in it. It'll have a title and an index number, but that's about it. So we have what's called a WBS dictionary. This WBS dictionary has the specifics for each work package, and it tells us all the information that we need to be able to execute that work package. How much it will cost, how many hours of labor it will take, what material we'll need, and so forth. So that is your WBS dictionary. Altogether, there are 33 different documents that we might use in a project. And we have examples of each one of those that we will provide to you. And we will talk about these as we go through the class and show you exactly how they are utilized. Upon completion of the Advanced Project Management Training Program, you'll have a well knowledge of Agile and predictive project management, and you'll also have new tools that you can use to improve your project's performance. You'll have the knowledge and tools that will enable you to pass the PMP or the CAPM exam. In this class, we use 3 different textbooks. We use one for the Precourse study. Then we use one for the classroom instruction that's provided by PMI. And we also provide a third textbook, which is composed of many items that you'll be able to use in your project that we put together at PSI Project Management. Now, also included in that book that PSI PM put together, you also have earned value and network diagramming examples. Now, for more information on the schedule, the courses and programs that are offered by PSI Project Management, you can visit the website at www.psipm.com. You can email me, roym@psipm.com, or you can call me, 864-915-7808, or text. I look forward to hearing from you, and I hope to see you in the class in the near future. But I want to thank you very much for watching this video, and I hope it's helpful to you. And I hope you have a very blessed day.